Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lene Palmisano, and I'm the Chair of Committee of the Whole. I'm going to call to order our regular committee meeting for Tuesday, March 7th. At this time, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll and verify the presence of a quorum.
Councilmember Payne is absent. Councilmember Wansley.
Present.
Councilmember Rainville.
Present.
Councilmember Vitaw.
Present.
Councilmember Ellison is absent. Councilmember Osman.
Present.
Councilmember Goodman.
Present.
President Jenkins is absent. Councilmember Chuktai.
Present.
Councilmember Koski.
Present.
Councilmember Johnson is absent.
entry.
And President Jenkins.
Present.
Councilmember Payne.
Present.
Vice Chair Chavez is absent. Chair Palmisano.
Present.
That's 10 members present.
Thank you. Please let the record reflect that we have a quorum. We had a very long committee meeting this morning, and I know some of my colleagues are just needing to grab a quick bite to eat here, and will get here as soon as they can. We have one item on our agenda today in addition to our regular committee reports. That item is a presentation on some of the vision and future structure of the Minneapolis Police Department, and I will invite Police Chief Brian O'Hara to come on up and give us that presentation. Welcome, Chief.
All right, good afternoon, Chair. Thank you. Just before I start, I just have a question. It was my understanding I'm doing this along with a member of HR. Is that still the case? Because I don't see the person here.
I was
I have a
unaware.
presentation myself, but they have also prepared something related to this for the council.
I am unaware, and we do not have a presentation
Okay.
in LIMS from HR
Okay,
at all.
so I'll just do what I
So
have. Okay.
I think it's just the one that we went through
Okay.
yesterday.
Thank you, Chair. So good afternoon. Here to talk about two proposed positions within the police department, but also to talk larger about what the vision for the structure and the hierarchy of the police department as I see what's best for the city going forward. I think it's on its most basic level, we need to get back to what the essential mission of the police department is. And we need to ensure that the police department is structured to accomplish that mission. And that is, we are in the business to ensure public safety in the city on one side, and also to ensure trust and accountability and constitutional policing on the other. So I believe it's critically important that we reorganize the department to accomplish those two essential goals as part of our mission, and especially now as we're dealing with limited resources and we are preparing to go into potential settlement agreement and or consent decree with the federal government. I have seen already since I've been the chief November 7th that we have been working to try and affect those two goals and to try and change the narrative around policing in the city, to be present both with community around the city, and also for me personally to be present with our police officers as they are out in the field doing incredible work to keep people safe. And I have heard back, as I'm sure many of you have, that people are happy and they are seeing and they can feel this energy and this result. And I think that's something that we have to continue going forward. Just to point out the results that we're having, despite having 35 fewer police officers today than we did last year, our cops have already recovered 117 illegal guns, which is 35 more guns off the street than at this point last year. At this point this year, our shootings are down 34%. Which means there's been 29 fewer victims, 29 fewer families affected by gun violence this year. Reports of shots fired in the city year to date are already down by a third citywide. So I think these are concrete results that we need to continue. We need to try and build on this momentum because we are starting to see the results. And we have significant plans through collaboration with all of our law enforcement partners. And I think this is something that this is just the beginning, and I think you all will be seeing even more results very soon before we get into the summer. Traveling around the city and being present in community and also at crime scenes, I have had the chance to speak with a lot of our residents who are most affected by crime and violence in the city, in their neighborhoods. And I know they know what good policing looks like, and they're the folks who need it the most. And I know from my own personal experience as a police officer in Newark, I know what it takes internally to deliver to them what they need. And again, that's ensuring that we all work urgently with everything that we have to reduce crime and violence. So what we're talking about today is putting in a structure that is the beginning of a way to ensure that we're accomplishing those goals as best we can. So as we go through this, I'm just going to present what is actually the higher level structure of the police department today. So there's one police chief, there's one assistant chief, and there are 3 deputy chiefs, one over investigations, one over patrol, one over professional standards. And then there is a sworn member of the department who is a chief of staff, who also, on his uniform, wears 2 stars, as the other deputy chiefs do. I am the chief of police, and that's defined as the chief executive of the agency. I'm responsible for everything that the department does, as well as for administering discipline to police officers. The one assistant chief that we have is defined as a position that oversees the day-to-day operations of the department. They also oversee the bureaus, the deputy chiefs, and all of the functions of the agency. Deputy Chief of Investigations has a bureau that provides the investigative function, and his or her direct reports include our forensics, which is led by a civilian director, our special crimes investigations, our strategic operations and intelligence division, as well as our violent crime investigators, the shooting response team, robbery, and assault detectives. Deputy Chief of Patrol oversees the 5 precincts throughout the city. And I think that's probably the folks that most likely have contact with our council members and our residents who are looking for service in community. Deputy Chief of Professional Standards. This is a bureau that has a lot of stuff that's not, not all of it is so related, that's kind of pushed together. One thing I want to point out here is our internal affairs unit, which is a critical function for accountability, is listed under the Professional Standards Bureau. And as I get into later in the presentation, I will be suggesting that I don't think that is a best practice. I think we need to take internal affairs out of professional standards and have a deputy chief responsible just for internal affairs. I think we need to expand internal affairs and divide it up by function and ensure that we are in line with best practices. So I'll get into that a little bit further. Also under professional standards, we have technology and the support services division, as well as administrative services. So the Chief of Staff oversees the Community Engagement Bureau. So similar to the other deputy chiefs, the Chief of Staff has sworn personnel and units that report up to him. And that's the homelessness and vulnerable populations, the police activities unit, the backgrounds investigators, the CSO program, and our recruitment. So this is the organizational chart that would be proposed for a new executive structure. This includes 4 new positions, but we're only talking about 2 of those positions today. This is the proposed organizational chart. The new positions are listed in green. You see on the top left, there is a deputy chief of a constitutional policing bureau. That position, again, is not up today, but that's one that would essentially oversee the implementation unit for a settlement agreement and a consent decree and all the work around community engagement and trust building that is essential to be done to lead a consent decree and reform. The next green going to the right is a civilian chief of staff position. And then the next one to the right is a deputy chief over the Internal Affairs Bureau, which would have an internal affairs division reporting to it. Then all the way over on the right is that's the new assistant chief position that we're talking about today. That would be an assistant chief to oversee community trust and engagement. That would take both the bureau that currently exists under the sworn member that's a chief of staff. That bureau would report to that person. as well as these other components of the department below it. So essentially, with the 2 assistant chief positions, what we're doing is we're dividing the department in half. We're taking on one half an assistant chief that will oversee operations. That's law enforcement. That's our mission to reduce crime and victimization in the city. Coordinating all that through one assistant chief, one chief overseeing the operations component. The other assistant chief would be overseeing the other half of the department that works to rebuild trust, to engage with community, and to ensure that we're doing all those things in community to change the narrative around policing in the city. So that assistant chief, again, would have the Community Engagement Bureau as a direct report, but it would also have these other divisions that were previously reporting to the one assistant chief, which would include professional standards and everything under that, with the exception of internal affairs. Internal affairs would be separate, reporting to its own deputy chief that also reports to the new assistant chief. And then these other components, again, that were in the Community Engagement Bureau. To speak to internal affairs briefly, while I know we're not talking about that position today, I just want to be clear, what has been done already and what I see as a need for us going forward. When I became chief, there were 3 investigators assigned to internal affairs, 3 investigators, a lieutenant, and a commander. And the commander is the highest ranking person in internal affairs, who then reports to a deputy chief who also oversees all these other functions. So the national standard for internal affairs investigations is to have 1 investigator for every 100 sworn members. So we essentially had half the number of investigators as to what the national standard is. So I added 3 additional investigators. So today we have a total of 6 investigators in internal affairs. Going forward, should we create the additional position of a deputy chief with internal affairs, I would like to add a second component under internal affairs. So we would have 1 lieutenant overseeing the 6 investigators that we have now, and have a separate lieutenant to oversee investigators that only investigate use of force. Obviously, use of force by police, investigations into use of force, complaints about use of force are clearly an issue that are not only important to people, but that's something that is a part of every consent decree from the last generation federally of consent decrees, and that's certainly something that we will have to deal with. Even if we weren't getting into these types of agreements, it is a best practice in policing to have investigators that focus solely on force investigations, and to ensure that we have one central area that collates all the force investigations that happen in the department. Looking at the department structurally, what's not on here are concerns that I have around span of control and command presence and accountability. As we go forward, it's very important that we have a much higher level of accountability throughout the agency, especially if we want additional processes in place as a part of a settlement agreement. And I think we have to recognize that that takes people and resources to get that done. So if you were to look at the department today, I think we think of paramilitary organizations and police departments as sort of a hierarchy, one that goes up sort of like a triangle. But the reality is, the way we have people assigned here, it's not a smooth transition. We currently have 362 police officers and 157 sergeants. And then after sergeants, it goes up to lieutenants. We have 40 lieutenants, 7 commanders, 5 inspectors, 3 deputy chiefs. So if you just, by looking at the numbers, you can see on the bottom, it's sort of very close in terms of numbers, but then there's a jump and there's sort of a narrow hierarchy as you move forward. So the idea with this structure, starting at the top, getting a new team in place, additional deputy chiefs to oversee what is most important to people in the city, we would then follow through and look further down the chain to ensure that we have adequate management and supervision in place. Let me see the next. I'm sorry. Okay, so that's the last slide. I can speak to the two individual positions that we're talking about today that are part of the structure. The civilian chief of staff position, that would replace the current sworn member chief of staff position. The sworn personnel that report to the sworn chief of staff would be transferred to the new assistant chief position. They would report there. The new civilian chief of staff position will perform civilian administrative functions. It will add capacity where currently there is a lack of capacity in the front office of the police department. It will help interface with other city departments on behalf of the police chief and the police department. It'll help, implement administrative processes within the organization, which we have already started to do, to ensure that there's better follow-up and better mechanisms for accountability in place. This position will mainly supervise civilian administrative functions, but will also have the authority to convene staff for meetings on behalf of the administration to conduct follow-up as needed. And this position is really responsible for coordinating more effective information sharing and communicating within the department as well as between the police department, the city council, and other elected officials and intergovernmental relations. And this is just simply a model that other major cities have, including other larger cities who are going through consent decrees and settlement agreements. The assistant chief position, again, we currently have a deficit sort of at the top as far as what is needed and the amount of people that we have to conduct these functions. And this will just allow us to have, greater levels of accountability. Again, it splits the department in half between the operations, the law enforcement side, and the community trust building and accountability. So that's what I have prepared, and just prepared for any questions that you have, Chair.
Thank you. To my colleagues, I'm using speaker management, but also can look up and down the dais for flags. Councilmember Payne.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Chief. I broadly have a question about where we're delineating civilian versus sworn positions. I think it's clear that the Chief of Staff is civilian, but I'd be interested to hear your perspective on other civilian, either within the new hierarchy or even existing. So I know, for instance, crime prevention specialists.
Yes.
I'm seeing in this structure are going to be underneath the new community trust and engagement section. And my understanding is they report directly to up through the precinct inspectors and therefore would be under patrol. So I'm just trying to reorient how you're thinking about those civilian roles.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Council member, there's no change. This is just organizationally for reporting. Community engagement is all under one bureau that ultimately reports to, right now, the Chief of Staff position. This is no change from right now. They are, dispersed throughout the agency, but this is sort of, the way this is structured is sort of just a difference between like staff and line authority, that's all. There's no change from right now.
And then a follow-up question I have on our Constitutional Policing Bureau, which can I use that interchangeably as our implementation team?
Yes, yeah, that would report to that person, yes.
I'm just curious on how MPD as a department is going to be working with the attorney's office, and then how those interactions also are informed by the Office of Community Safety. Like, I'm just looking for those connection points and how that's all organized.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Council member, I've been through this before. The police department and the city are a party to a settlement agreement. And so what most often occurs is the document requires, the police department specifically to have people that conduct implementation. And so you cannot get this done without functioning with the city attorney's office because it is very heavily, obviously legal. And then you're also functioning with either the state MDHR or perhaps in the future, the Department of Justice, the U.S. Attorney's Office here, and then a monitor and a team of monitors. So it is very much a process with a lot of moving parts. But we, the police department is a party, but we are also part of the city, and to me, like everything else that we do, particularly around discipline, I can't get it done without the help of the city attorney's office.
I might want to ask a follow-up question of our attorney who is currently engaged in a conversation. Okay. I'm curious, what I see in this new structure is a lot of intentionality around directly responding to the consent decree and what requirements may come from that. I'm wondering if the city attorney's office is also thinking about your operational structure as it relates to responding to the consent decree.
Chair Palmisano, council members, absolutely, yes. In fact, the last cycle, I think, we came before this body asking for a new manager position in the city attorney's office, the function of which is to actually, manage the whole implementation, with respect to what the city attorney's office is doing specifically, but also kind of overseeing the way that the settlement agreements are being implemented enterprise-wide. So absolutely, we're building that structure within our office, and the chief and I have been in close coordination. These MPD absolutely needs an implementation unit. I mean, that's going to be a requirement, whether it's MDHR, whether it's the feds. MPD needs its own implementation unit, but the interaction between that implementation unit and the attorneys is going to be quite symbiotic, and in fact, I'm looking at, potential attorney positions to embed in that implementation unit so that, again, we're going to be working hand in glove together.
Chair, may I add?
Go ahead.
It will likely be a requirement, council member, of any agreement we get into, that this implementation unit be overseen by a high-ranking, may even be specific as to rank, person that would report directly to the chief of police. So that would likely be a part of any agreement.
Thank you. Councilmember Vito?
Thank you, Chair Palmisano. I have quite a few questions, so I don't know if you want me to just go for it or
Go ahead with the first
circle
few,
back.
and then we'll get you back again.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chief. I have a question around timing. I don't understand the timing of this request for us because you also are asking for positions at the state and no decisions have been made on that. So I'm wondering why you didn't choose to just wait to see if you got those positions and then come to us, and get them all together.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, council member. This isn't a decision I made on my own in regard to so there's state legislation that the council member is referring to that limits the number of deputy chiefs. From 1961, it only applies to Minneapolis, and Minneapolis is only allowed to have 3 deputy chiefs by this specific statute. So met with Senator Latz and Representative Jordan in St. Paul several weeks ago. Senator Latz's office, the Legislative Council, had drafted language to eliminate that requirement, and that bill is now with the Revisor's office. And Representative Jordan has committed to taking the companion bill in the House once that bill is introduced in the Senate. So that process is moving. And then when we're speaking about just these 2 positions, speaking, in concert with the mayor's office, the Office of Community Safety, the suggestion was that this structure should be presented all at once, but then I just introduce positions as we're able to. Because what's not on here is, and has moved forward, are several positions related to the consent decree implementation unit. So, there's all sorts of things that are happening. It's happening at different times, but it's happening, as we're able to do them.
So if you don't get these positions at the state, will you be back before us for these? Like, what's the plan if it doesn't happen?
Well, if for some reason the state does not, the legislature does not repeal this law, my understanding is the only alternative then would be to come before council to look to change, to look to have a unanimous vote of council to change the charter to allow this. That's what I'm told. That would supersede the state law.
So the plan is to come back before us if this doesn't happen.
Yeah, Chair, I don't have any indication that it would, but that is an alternative if that should happen.
If I might just interject, the city attorney wants to clarify something.
Chair Palmisano, council members, maybe I can put a little bit of clarity. So the state law applies to deputy chiefs and deputy chiefs only. The two positions that the chief is coming forward with today are not actually deputy chief positions. So even if that law doesn't get repealed at the state level, it doesn't affect the two positions that are coming before you today. And I also wanted to make clear sort of like question, well, why are you here? You know, government structure, and why are you here with these positions anyways? These positions are going to be placed in the unclassified service, and so under ordinance, in order to place positions in the unclassified service, that needs to come before council. So they're not deputy positions, but they are unclassified positions. That's why they're coming to you. If the law doesn't change at the state level, it would not affect these two positions. You know, it would affect the deputy chief position, Constitutional Policing Bureau, and that one is not before you today.
I just want to say that this department chart has those two positions in there, like as a part of the chief's plan moving forward. So I think it's important for us to know what the plan is if we don't have those two positions that are on this chart. If that doesn't happen, what is the plan moving forward? I'm completely aware of what we're voting on today here with the civilian chief of staff and the assistant chief. My next question is about, so you currently have one assistant chief. Who's the assistant chief?
Thank you, Chair, Councilmember. The assistant chief is Henry Halverson, and the acting assistant chief is Amelia Huffman.
Okay, and so you'll move forward with two assistant chiefs, and on this chart, they're separated out to two, kind of like two different categories. Are you planning, you have another set of leadership that's a part of this too. Have you appointed any staff so far?
Thank you, Chair. No.
Okay, so after this, you still need to appoint all of your staff, assistant chiefs, deputy chiefs, everyone.
Thank you, Chair. Well, we currently have an acting assistant chief, and there are 3 deputy chiefs in the roles. I have not appointed anyone differently, no.
But you could, later on, you could change who your leadership staff is.
Thank you, Chair. Yes.
Okay. Which current police reforms are you working on that leads you to believe that you need more administrative positions? And how do these changes help with reform in the police department?
Thank you, Chair. Councilmember, like I said earlier, the basic mission of the police department here is to try and have fewer victims of crime and violence, and also try and rebuild some sense of trust in the police department. And everyone here has been through a lot, and there has been a whole lot of frustration that I have heard from people in the community, from people on the street around both of those issues. And I think it is of the most importance to me that I ensure that we have urgency in the department around both of those issues. And so, you know, to divide the department in half by that mission and have one person who oversees just law enforcement operations 24/7, right, that reports up all those functions for law enforcement, as well as having one person that focuses on all of the accountability side. I think that's what we need to do going forward, because it's just there will be increasing requirements on the agency higher up as we go forward. Getting into, regardless of any potential settlement agreements, if we're serious about having higher levels of accountability, we need people to do that. And I think that's something that's been clear from a lot of the things that have played out in the city over the last 3 years.
But Chief, so wouldn't you be taking more officers off the streets with this new department? Like that, if you're gonna have more people in admin, and you're saying that we need more support out on the streets. So how is this helping that?
Thank you, Chair. This position, these two positions, one of them creates a civilian position for Chief of Staff to oversee administrative functions. The second position creates a second Assistant Chief position to oversee on a high level all those issues around engagement, legitimacy, and trust building. Those are what these two positions do.
I know we're talking about these two, but there's technically four.
Yep.
Because there's two more at the state level. So one is a civilian, so that wouldn't be an officer that's being taken off the streets. There's three, though, that would need to come from the rank and file. And so I'm not sure how that doesn't affect our bottom line with the officers we need. My next question is
May I
about,
respond to it, Chair?
Go
ahead.
ahead. And if that's all right, go ahead, Chief.
So, thank you, Chair. Council member. So we're eliminating a sworn Chief of Staff. So we would add, if this law passed, we would add two sworn positions. One to oversee consent decree implementation, which will likely be required by any settlement agreement. That's not going to be a choice. We're going to have to do that. The other one would oversee internal affairs. And internal affairs is a serious issue. If we're going to be for real about, trying to address accountability in the department, we need a higher level of accountability in internal affairs, and we will need to build out internal affairs. We will need to assign additional investigators to internal affairs. I think that's likely, but I think that's important. I think that's what people want.
Councilmember Vito, did you want to have one more question, and then we'll circle back to you? There's others in queue.
I have a question about the chief's detail. So this is something that I wasn't familiar with until I received this department chart. And I know that, you have a driver that was a Precinct 4 police officer that is now with you. So can you tell me more about what this chief's detail means?
Thank you, Chair. The chief's detail historically in the police department is the Office of the Chief of Police. That's who is in the chief's detail.
But who is, who are the
Everyone who works in the chief's office, the civilians, everybody who works there.
okay, so like your executive assistant
Yes.
and driver and all of those people are the chief's detail?
So, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Council Member. I had a sergeant that was assigned to the chief's detail when I became the chief. I transferred out the sergeant and added a police officer into the position. The police officer works in the office with me, assists with community engagement, particularly engagement around East African population in the city, and also when I respond on the street and go out, as a police officer, like the other cops in the city, I take a police officer with me.
I just want to go on record saying that I have never in the history of Minneapolis Police Department heard of a chief having a driver. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on to Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you, Chair Palmisano. I just want to say thank you, Chief, for this presentation. It's very helpful in giving some sense of MPD's next step. I know you have only been in this position since November, but I'm really appreciative that you're engaging us and the public in a conversation around your vision to lead this organization. I will also name that, since the appointment of Dr. Cedric Alexander and the formation of the Office of Community Safety, my constituents have been curious to know how does MPD fit into this new integrated model that we, formed as the basis of this new office. And I recognize, like you are here today, Dr. Alexander has not presented formally an update around the progress in which we are making in addressing the vision and goals of that new office. I think the last time we had a formal presentation was in the fall when we were hashing out details around the government restructure ordinance. So I say that in the sense of constituents have consistently asked for these public and regular updates publicly around how is MPD transparently moving forward to create change? And I will hope that there's a commitment with the PHS chair and maybe other members in this body for you to come and give these regular updates. And actually, I'll pause there. Is that something you would be committed to doing regular updates in a proper committee for us to fully understand what is MPD doing and so our constituents can know? Because I also don't think prior to this, we've gotten an update from MPD since almost last spring. So thank you for coming forward, and it's sad that this was the the trigger point for us to have this conversation.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councilmember. Yes. I think it's going to be important, especially those of us who are seriously concerned about what is reform going to look like, what is the police department doing. I think we have to be prepared to report to council, ensure council's informed, but also to be prepared to do meaningful engagement with this around the city. Because we're not going to be able to, we're going to be required to conduct engagement, receive feedback, include that in a meaningful way, and be able to report back to community on an ongoing basis. So that's a huge part of what we have to do going forward, for sure.
And do you see, I know typically we have our reports from committees. I know chairs, they have discretion in how they enforce this in their relevant, committees, but quarterly updates. Is that something that we could have from MPD? Of course, in agreement with, PHS chair, or patterns and practice subcommittee. I think the goal is to have more frequent updates from you as the new leader of this organization, when you're talking about building trust, to just have that moment of transparency of how you're leading this organization in a different direction.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Again, Councilmember, yes, in whatever form the governing body here wants, of course, yeah.
Awesome. And then my next question, it kind of dives into some of the things that Councilmember Vital raised in terms of dynamics around staffing and personnel. I know in terms of one of the issues that locks in personnel being on patrol on the streets is the 70-30 provision that's currently in our police contract. We had a thorough debate about that earlier today around some of the council members being involved in that discussion around police contract. If you're concerned about patrol, maybe consider that provision. But in this context, I know the provision also compromises fully staffing our investigative division. And I will name, out of all the concerns that's raised to me by constituents, it's the lack of staffing in investigations, the lack of follow-through or follow-up when an issue or a crisis has happened, and they don't hear from MPD. So I see the boxes here, but I don't see any specific figures of FTEs that's being allocated. Can you provide a sense of how you're approaching the staffing of our investigative divisions, and if there's a way to get an updated chart that has more spelled out, like staffing allocations for these positions in departments?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councilmember. So, yes, and as far as what we're doing, we're very fortunate to have a lot of help investigatively from law enforcement partners. And there's things that we're doing to try and maximize that. And thankfully, we have ongoing support from the BCA in terms of investigations. We also have some civilian investigators that assist to try to compensate. But what I have found, and every so often, I get emails or someone will call about a concern regarding an investigation. And what I've found since I've been here, it is not the case that investigators have not done their job. If anything, we need to ensure that we're doing a better job at providing updates, I think, to victims. It's not a question of the quality of work. The police officers, the investigators here are doing incredible work. And when these questions come up and we convene meetings and we bring people in, that's what I have seen every time I've been here. So I'm thankful for what we have as far as the assistance that we do get from outside agencies. And we're trying to maximize some of that proactively before the summer to try and prevent some of these things from happening.
And just clarification on that, I do want to name in terms of the comment that I made wasn't in regards to the quality of work. It was regarding there is a backlog, and I know this because we hear this repeatedly from our constituents about, like you said, there's no follow-up that's being communicated to them when a case is resolved, or even like what is happening in the case. So I would say there is a backlog, and you mentioned in terms of LoJIP, basically what is the timeline of assistance that we're going to be receiving from these law enforcement personnel, you named BCA, that is going to help supplement, and kind of when does that run out? Because I think that would be important for us to consider if we're going to have to make other allocations to fill that gap.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councilmember. I didn't mean to imply that if I did. I was just trying to completely answer the question. BCA is embedded here, and there is actually a bill, part of the larger criminal justice bill before the legislature that will provide them additional funding so that they'll be able to do things around the state so that, so that we can ensure that we maintain the assistance that we're getting. Also separately, I am dedicating personnel directly to the Violent Crimes Unit in the U.S. Attorney's Office to do some high-level work that I think you will all see the results of soon that will help try and prevent some of these crimes from happening. But yes, it is definitely, like it has always been, it is definitely a triage at times. And yes, that's definitely something we have to continue to work on.
Awesome. And then I don't know if you provided a follow-up on this question, but is there a way to, sounds like what you said, like it would be good to have an updated version of this org chart with the staffing allocations that you're making.
Yes.
And I think also it'd be good, because we've asked this a couple of times too, of what partners are the law enforcement partners that are supporting the aspects of each division. So we take into account like the outside personnel assistance that we're getting from other law enforcement agencies. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to just mention, we talked about where we might receive these kinds of updates in the future. What seems appropriate to me might be for all 13 of us to benefit and have it be at the government structure level here in Cal, because this really is about that government structure and would enable all 13 members to participate if the council president is amenable to that sort of a thing. This is everything about MPD structure and operations. And so maybe we'd be able to entice you back. Next in queue is Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Vice President. Thank you, Chief, for being here. And thank you for doing this presentation. I know that this was sort of, the inception of this was these two positions coming through. We have a lot of positions, new positions coming through POGO, especially with government structure changes. But I noticed that, whereas a lot of departments will have one position, two positions, there's a lot of changes happening. There's a lot of conversation happening within MPD and what leadership's going to look like. And so I felt like it was a good time for us to pause and sort of take inventory of, how many new positions, reclassifications can we anticipate sort of coming through the department in the next couple of months, in the next year. I know we're going to take them up one at a time, two at a time, but that was sort of one of the original questions that I had, and I know that there's a lot of shifting factors, but I wondered if you had an answer to that question.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councilmember. My understanding, the way things work here, this is it. It would be these 4 spots. We're moving forward with, again, civilian positions around consent decree implementation, but that's not stuff that would have to come before the governing body.
Great, thank you. One other question that I had, and this might be for the attorney, we are, we haven't finalized the agreement with MDHR. Obviously, we know that the DOJ is working, but we don't know what their timeline is, and we haven't engaged with them. They haven't engaged with us directly with what they're thinking. I think one of the things that gave me pause originally, and I think that through some conversation with yourself, Chief, and with my colleagues, I've become more comfortable with it. But one of the things is that, to have an assistant chief that is in all likelihood going to have some purview over consent decree related to the consent decree without having gotten that full briefing, without knowing what the agreement is, without knowing what the full picture is, can be a little bit difficult. And I guess I'm just wondering, to the extent that it is possible to articulate, how does this sort of fit into the full picture of what's going to be asked of us in these agreements?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Council Member. From my experience, both in one of the few cities in the country that has done this federally, and also then working with other major cities around the country, and actually I spoke to one of the DOJ attorneys involved in our case yesterday. I am just familiar with the issues and the requirements of these documents. They tend to be similar, particularly what we refer to as sort of the second generation, the most recent consent decrees. So yes, I mean, I think aside from just the fact of having an implementation unit itself, ensuring that we are structured in a way to provide the type of administrative follow-up and then law enforcement oversight, will help us get to those goals faster. It's all about coming into compliance. That's what these things are all about. Eventually there will be some type of settlement agreement with any number of paragraphs in it, and all of it is requirements that we have to do. And the city's going to be paying someone to monitor us, to say whether or not we're doing this stuff or not. But aside from that expense itself, it falls on us. It falls, mostly on the police department to get this stuff done and to be able to prove in some way that we're implementing these things almost perfectly. That's the standard when we get evaluated. So I believe, this is the structure that will help us get there faster.
And I'll jump in too. Chair Palmisano and council members, as the chief said, you know that we are negotiating a settlement agreement and we have some good ideas of what it's going to look like, but what we really, really know is what these consent decree settlement agreements look like nationwide. They all have very, very similar provisions. We know what the issues are that were raised by MDHR, and so the city attorney's office and the chief have been working very closely together to help the chief map out, both based on his own prior experience and based on our knowledge, what sort of positions he's going to need in that implementation unit.
Great, thank you. And I asked that question, and I'm almost done, just because I know that there were a lot of conversations prior to the chief being appointed about what this is going to look like, what needs to be done. I know the council president was representing the council in those discussions. And I think when I first saw these positions, my first reaction was, is this in step or out of step with that? And I think that, at least what I'm hearing is that this is very much in step with that. I think that kind of concludes the questions that I have. I'll just add that, it was very helpful to connect with you directly and to get an understanding of what your vision is here, and to kind of understand that, this isn't going to be some slow trickle that's not transparent to the public of positions. My worry was, are we going to look up at the end of summer and we've approved 12 positions and we don't know how it all kind of fits together? I think this gives us a better sense of how it all sort of fits together, and I appreciate comments from the attorney as well. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Rainville?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chief, thank you for coming today, and thank you for being out in that community and being present. You've started to rebuild that trust, and you're doing a great job, so thank you. I do have a question, though, about that chief of staff. So you have a civilian in that position, and I'm wondering what the qualifications would be for that chief of staff.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councilmember. There's HR has come up with a job qualification that lists it. I don't believe I have it with me because I thought HR would be here to talk about those specifics.
Madam Vice President, this is the issue. I think there was some confusion at the beginning. The Human Resources Department, as some council members know, was at the Policy and Government Oversight Committee with the formal request for these new positions, including the Chief of Staff. And so those items were held at the POGO Committee, or the Policy and Government Oversight Committee, last cycle into this cycle. They're still at that committee level right now. I can certainly make sure to forward those links to all council members so you can see those job analyses that were done by our Human Resources Department on the two positions. Sorry, Chief.
Sure. Thank you.
And just one last question. So having a civilian interact with sworn officers, how does that, what, in your experience, is that what you did in Newark?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councilmember. No, Tawana Rollins was my chief of staff, but she was a sworn member of the department at the time. Other cities around the country, Chuck Ramsey is a well-known elder statesman in policing. He was a high-ranking official in Chicago, D.C., Philadelphia. He had a chief administrative officer, which was a civilian, that followed him to at least two of those departments. Chicago, for example, has a civilian chief of staff, also under a consent decree. Seattle has a civilian, I think they call it like chief strategy officer or something. It's a high-ranking civilian position. Baltimore had a deputy commissioner who was a civilian who worked in New Orleans. I just don't remember the title, in the New Orleans Police Department under the consent decree, who then went with Mike Harrison to Baltimore, and he was called a deputy commissioner, but he was a civilian. It was like a non-sworn position, also on the executive level. So these positions exist around the country with just different names. Chicago being one that has like the same name as what we're using.
Thank you, Chief.
And they exist in these cities, not just in these cities, but they do exist in these cities that are under consent decree as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Osman.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Thank you, Chief, for being here today, and this is very helpful for us to see what works for you and what worked for under your leadership. It gives us a picture of what the department looks like, and I think I am super happy that the way you kind of tell us that there will be two different sections where one section of it will focus more on community trust and so on, and that's one of the things I actually want to make a comment about. I don't have any question, but ever since you've been here, I feel like there has been trust, especially the community I represent from. I have seen the social media and Facebooks of the MPD and how engagement they are doing with the community, attending public safety and connecting youth, and and for me, I think that what reform looks like. I think that's what, when you have the civilian position you're talking about, and when you have this community trust and community engagement and people coming together and interacting with officers and creating that trust, things become a lot easier. So I look forward more work on your side, and so far I think that my experience interacting with you and interacting with the community and getting the feedback, and even seeing you go into the mosque and cultural centers has been a very good positive feedback. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Back to Councilmember Vita.
Thank you, Chair Palmisano. Just a few questions. Earlier, Chief, you said that the civilian chief of staff was going to supervise all the civilians in the department, and I don't see that on this chart. So is that the case?
Thank you, Chair. No, Councilmember, that's not the case. There are civilians already in the police department. There's civilian directors. There's actually a civilian director who has some sworn personnel under her. But no, it is according to this.
So this is it
this
right
structure.
here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, Chair, there are civilians that work in the police chief's office, so technically, I guess those people would be.
Oh, so you're saying like the civilians in your detail will be supervised by
Yeah.
the civilian chief of staff?
Yeah, that's who would run the functions of the office, yeah.
Okay. And then legally, can we have a civilian chief of staff? I haven't got an answer for that, but I was wondering, like, based on state statute or anything within our contract with the Federation, like, can we legally have a civilian chief of staff?
I'm going to actually take that and pass it over to the city attorney.
Chair Palmisano, Councilmember Vita and council members, yes, you can legally have a civilian chief of staff. The responsibilities of this position are absolutely civilian related and wouldn't take away from the functions of the under the Federation contract at all.
Okay, thank you. And then my last question is, we received an email this week from the city attorney's office that Assistant Chief Huffman is now embedded in the city attorney's office and is working on the consent decree. How does that differ from the constitutional policing deputy?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Council Member. So the police department is going to be required to have its own implementation unit. They will work in coordination with an implementation unit in the city attorney's office, and I can pass it to the city attorney if you want to add anything further to that.
Chair Palmisano, council members, I mean, I think that Chief explained it very well. The implementation unit will be kind of obviously it's part of this structure, but it will be fully responsible for implementing the settlement agreement. You know, what we're doing now with Chief Huffman is very, very wonderfully helping us out with kind of hopefully, maybe some of the last stages of our negotiations. So it's a separate thing.
So will we have 3 assistant chiefs then? Or the chief will have, the current assistant chief that's in the county attorney's office will remain there as the assistant chief, and the chief will be getting 2 new assistant chiefs?
Chair Palmisano, council members, no. So under the chief structure, there will be 2 assistant chiefs, one again over operations, one over engagement. Assuming the state law is changed, there would be a deputy chief over the implementation unit. So 2 assistants and then a deputy over the implementation unit.
Okay.
Anything further, Councilmember?
Processing.
Sure.
Thank you.
I put myself in queue here, actually to piggyback off of one of Councilmember Wansley's questions. The investigations division I see is terrifically understaffed and very important in how we solve more crimes in Minneapolis. And I was curious if you could talk a little bit about your familiarity or visits to our investigations division, and then something that we heard a lot about with Chief Arredondo in the past was his desire to implement navigators. And those navigators really serve to connect community, and particularly victims of crime, with the status of their investigations and help keep people updated in appropriate ways. And are those navigators a part of the future of your department and your vision here?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've heard a lot of discussion among that. I think actually some of the members here have been at community meetings with me where this has come up. Yes, I think that's critically important. The Investigations Bureau currently has 115 members assigned to it. That's assigned to everything that we do. That's Minneapolis members of the department. One thing that's, the way that this is structured here, based on the collective bargaining agreement, investigators are sergeants here. That is a requirement and that has been negotiated between the city and the union. So that's just a fact. It does provide some limitation in the sense of who you could assign to conduct investigations, because it is a requirement that an investigator actually be a sergeant.
Thank you. And so you do still see the need for and look to staff navigator kinds of roles?
Yes, of course, Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Wansley?
Thank you, Council Vice President. I just wanted to get on record the commitment. This is a question towards you, or just clarifying. You mentioned that you will be receptive towards having more regular updates. The chiefs, said quarterly would be fine, at least from MPD, to come to, you said, government restructure, or having government restructure be a place where we have follow-up conversations around the vision and kind of goals of MPD, as it also Office of Community Safety broadly. Just wanted to get clarification of what you meant earlier.
Councilmember Wansley, I'm not sure. I've gotten several messages during this meeting after saying that it's unclear. I know that Commissioner Alexander has recently made a commitment. Councilmember Vito, do you want to just pipe in?
I would, thank you, because I meant to say it the last time I spoke. I actually just met with the commissioner this morning to schedule presentations from the police department, fire. Previously, we didn't have his department, and so folks just kind of got on the agenda every other month. But now the commissioner and I discussed a more structured approach from all 5 of the departments that is, within his purview. And I think May 4th is the first presentation we're planning to have in PHS. And so, of course, everyone is welcome to come and join us in PHS. But we did, just this morning, we had a meeting discussing a timeline for how we'll have presentations from the chief also, but with the approach of the commissioner coming in and kind of setting the tone, and then having the 5 departments that follow under him present on whatever it is we've discussed.
So, Councilmember Wansley, with that piece of information, I wonder if maybe the thinking on that changes a little bit, and we just make sure that we invite all members to public health and safety because this would fit within that construct, but I'm not sure. And ultimately, it is up to the council president to help us route those things accordingly. So we'll continue having that discussion, but I know that our interest is in having it open and available, these dialogues in the public square. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Councilmember Wansley, were you through?
No, that answers my question. I'm glad that there is commitment, at least from the Public Health and Safety Chair. I'm assuming that also falls under line with Councilmember Payne. I know I've asked questions about that, so I'm glad to hear that May 4th will finally be getting
May
a presentation. May 3rd, thank you. So really excited to report that out to my constituents.
Thank you. Councilmember Koski.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Chief O'Hare, for being here today and elaborating. I am a member of POGO, and it's nice to get the continued elaborate understanding of this. A couple questions I had. One is I heard, why we have, I'm just going to call it two divisions, just to help myself simplify this on this map here. One that's building trust of community, one that's reducing the number of victims of crime. I'm just curious if you can just walk through your thinking. How did you get to this? Did you work with the commissioner? Did you work with an organizational development consultant or other chiefs? I heard a little bit maybe about working with the attorney's office, but like how do you go about looking at what our current org chart was and then think, this is how I think it should be laid out?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Council Member. I'm not from Minneapolis. I'm not from the Minneapolis Police Department. So certain things when I come here and I come into this situation is just very different from what I've experienced before. And to me, again, the limitations that we have on the executive level and actually through the command staff are not helpful in terms of having issues addressed urgently. And I think some of that stuff is cultural here. It's cultural in the police department. And just, having a structure that's not based on the limitations that we have today. We're limited based on statute and these different positions and things. We have one assistant chief and 3 deputy chiefs. That's it. The fire department here has 2 assistant chiefs and 7 deputy chiefs. And it is important to have accountability. It is important to address issues urgently. Culturally, I have just seen things here, and I've changed some processes already around notifications. I recognize I am different. I'm different than what people have experienced here. The first murder that happened in the city was on North Lindale Avenue. Just past the McDonald's. And I went to the scene right after it happened. And I beat the detectives and everybody else there. And some folks from the community were there. There were people that were upset that a young person had been killed on a Saturday morning, like 11:30 in the morning. And I actually spoke to some of them that were recording and filming and posting some of this stuff on Facebook. And people were upset because they felt that the police department here had normalized what happened, that this was just okay, that because people were mad that a man was tortured to death by police and people were upset about that, they felt like, people were upset about that one thing, so cops kind of, lost their desire to try and address these problems urgently. And I told those guys, I agree, we need to be urgent about all of this stuff. And I told them that's why I am here personally. And not just them, but the cops that I've seen at that scene and dozens of others since then have told me, we have never seen a police chief come to a scene like this unless a police officer had fired their gun. So it starts with me. I believe in what we're doing. I wouldn't be here away from my sons, away from my wife, if I didn't believe this is absolutely necessary, and there's nothing more important in my profession on earth than to try and fix this stuff today. That's why I'm here. And so I think we got to get back to basics here. We got to get back to, we're trying to have fewer victims of crime, and we're trying to build trust and legitimacy in our community, especially in places, again, that not only experience most of the most serious crime, they also experience the policing itself the most. And what's incredible is despite all of that, there's so many people in this city, especially in North Minneapolis, that are so loving and so supportive of police. They just want good policing. They just want us to address this stuff urgently. So I don't want to be confined by one assistant chief and 3 deputy chiefs because just that's the bureaucratic system we have. I want us to try and have something better that can help us deliver what those people deserve. So that is my thinking, and yes, it's been in consultation with everyone since I first got here, since we first started and thinking about these things. But clearly, again, we need a leadership structure in place that can deliver the type of accountability and a sense of urgency around these issues.
Thank you. I'm hearing that a lot of it has come from just the experience that you've had coming from another state into the city. So it's also helpful for me to just understand that context of like how you build this framework out. One other follow-up, I just want to make sure I get clarity that if I'm thinking about Plan B here, if those 2 roles, I know we're talking about the 2 roles that we can define, but if those 2 roles do not, the state legislature does not go into the way that you want, my understanding right now is Plan B is that we as a council, your ask would be for us to change the charter.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councilmember. I'm not saying that's necessarily Plan B. I would talk to the commissioner, I would talk to the mayor's office, what they think. That is an option. I just know, I know, for example, the deputy chief of constitutional policing will have to have something on that level. We'll have to create something to report on that level. It may have to be something different. We'll have to come up with something different. Maybe it'll have to be a commander position if we can't do that, and have to be something that we work out in a settlement agreement. I do believe this is what's best, but again, we'll have to figure this out as we go. In terms of what is best to provide this service.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last in queue, we have Councilmember Vito.
Thank you, Chair Koski. Chief, I really am struggling to understand how these positions are going to make these extremely significant changes that you are saying needs to happen in community. I really don't understand how a chief of staff and some administrative positions are going to really make the impact that you're saying that it needs to make. This feels like a word salad. This feels like, like you're just kind of putting something out there, but I'm not really understanding how this is working for. One of the things I heard a lot within the department was how top-heavy the administration was, and although I appreciate you being out at crime scenes, talking to the community, I think what's most important is that a chief is chiefing. A chief is doing administrative work, is, selecting administrative staffing. And these things they haven't even happened yet. I think you've been here 4 or 5 months and none of these things have happened. And so I don't understand how adding more layers to that is going to help community or help within the department. I'm just not seeing it.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councilmember. In terms of the department being top-heavy, there are 362 police officers and 157 sergeants for a ratio of 1 sergeant for every 2 police officers. Above that, there are 40 lieutenants, and then 7 commanders, 5 inspectors, 3 assistant chiefs, 1 assistant chief, and the chief. So it is just not stratified based off of the numbers. It is heaviest on the bottom, in the bottom 2 ranks. Those are just the numbers.
But the department is designed to have more cops out on the streets. It's not designed to have 300 people in the office, right? And it's been functioning this way. I mean, not in the best, but these two positions are not going to change anything that we've had discussions about, or the four positions, anything that we've had discussions about when it comes to police reforms or police account. You keep using the word accountability or police accountability, adding these four positions. I'm really struggling to see how that's going to help that.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councilmember. We will have this as a part of the settlement agreement. If you look at any consent decrees that are public, there are sections on supervision and accountability, and it requires certain positions to do certain things. I am not saying that these two new positions are a part of that. However, supervision is just a necessary function of providing accountability. I'm happy to talk about it more if, there are like specific questions around it, but we will be required to do things at a higher level. And just the way that it's structured right now, there are just too many things that come, I think, into one person. I think internal affairs is serious enough that it needs its own deputy chief over it. I think investigating use of force is serious enough that we should have our own component of internal affairs to do that. And I think consent decree implementation is serious enough that the person who oversees that should be a deputy chief. So that's what I believe.
Thank you. Councilmember, sorry, there were a couple more people that popped into queue here at the end, starting with Councilmember Chugtai.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chief, appreciate you coming in and answering our questions and explaining kind of what you're envisioning with these new positions. I know it's taken me a little while to wrap my head around how these positions and these titles are going to translate into impact and actualized or realized changes. And only time will tell how these things ultimately work out at the end of the day. But both from your presentation and then the discussion from colleagues, I feel like I have a much better understanding of what you're trying to do and can go back and explain this to constituents who are asking similar questions. So I really appreciate some of the changes on having a deputy chief that's focused more inward and one that's focused on community trust building and engagement. I know I at any given moment have a laundry list of cases that are moving in my ward where the bottleneck on it is nobody's talking to the police, and that's why we haven't been able to resolve an ongoing investigation. And each week I'm having the same exact conversation with the impacted family members. That's like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have anything else. The police doesn't have anything else. Nobody's talking to them. And I can appreciate that the goal here is to fundamentally shift the type of relationship that we have with Minneapolis residents and that the police department has with Minneapolis residents. I think you know a lot more about consent decree implementation than anyone else here does. I'm hoping you can just kind of speak to the importance of having a deputy chief overseeing implementation. And the root of my question is, I'm trying to figure out, we're creating these new positions. I know that the settlement agreement is going to cost a lot of money to the city, and I want, and I think everyone here wants us to get in compliance and meet the requirements of that agreement so that we don't end up paying for a really large settlement agreement for many, many years into the future. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councilmember. I think we should think about it this way. This structure communicates what we think is important. If we don't think consent decree is that important, maybe we would fight to try and get a sergeant to oversee implementation. I know we won't be able to do that because I know people would not agree to it, and that's not how these things actually happen in other cities. But I think, how we communicate what we think we should be doing is communicated on this chart. Again, if we're supposed to be here to have operations, to reduce crime, and also have things done to build trust and have accountability, I think that's how the department should be structured. If we're serious about consent decree implementation, we should be communicating that, not just to the community, but in the department. That is a significant status in the department, as well as internal affairs. I think that deserves high-level accountability on the level that's commensurate with the position. Because I think that's what the people in this city would want and expect us to do. And I just think that this structure communicates what we believe is actually important.
Great. And so I'm walking away understanding like you have this at this rank because you believe that it will help us meet the requirements of a settlement agreement. And then my just quick follow-up, the 4 new positions, where is the funding for that going to come from? Is it within the existing police department budget or is it coming from somewhere else?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Council Member. Yes, we have plenty of funding for sworn personnel.
Great.
It's existing. Yeah.
Existing dollars. Great. Thank you. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Councilmember Goodman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be very brief because this has been a very long day. I just want to summarize what I've heard to make sure I can repeat it at my neighborhood meeting tonight. One position is putting someone at a very high level in charge of what will be the results of the consent decree, including all of these things underneath it, procedural justice, background, community engagement, chaplain program, et cetera, et cetera. Is that correct?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Council Member. Not the actual implementation unit, but all the other stuff. Yeah, yes, but not the actual implementation.
Because that's going to be a different person.
Yes.
But we don't have that position right now.
Yes.
So what we're being asked to do is put in this position that's in charge of community trust and engagement, correct? That's one.
Yes.
And then the second one is making the chief of staff a civilian instead of a sworn officer.
Yes.
That is all that's in front of us right now.
Yes.
Going forward, what might be in front of us is adding someone under Constitutional Policing Bureau. Is that the one that is going to be dealing with the consent decree?
Yes.
I would agree that should be a high-level position. That would be a slap in the face to have it be a sergeant. Although the sergeants are awesome, I'm not saying they are not, but I think it should be at a high level. I think the public will be demanding it. It's at a high level. And the last one is moving internal affairs out as its own thing as we're working through this new process that we're putting together. These last for holding police accountable under the civilian citizens and internal processes. Okay, so the two is demoting basically, or not demoting, but creating a civilian position to be chief of staff, not a sworn position, freeing up a sworn position, and putting someone in charge of all of these community things. That's all we're being asked to do, and it's a receive and file, by the way. It's not like a yes or no. We don't have the power to say no, but I appreciate you being here, and I really appreciate Councilmember Vita taking these issues up in committee for anyone who would want to hear it.
So just to clarify that, actually I'm going to ask Councilmember Ellison to clarify that, because while today is receive and file, there still is an action before us through committee this week. Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. So we have, these were 2 positions that came through POGO in collaboration with HR. And, I think we held those positions in POGO pending this presentation. And it felt, because that was the reason that we held them over, it felt inappropriate to then just forward without the presentation. That being said, I don't think that we need a full cycle in order to make a decision on this. And so given that we've had this presentation, we've been able to have, I think, a really good discussion on this topic. My plan for Thursday, and I want to notice this for the public, and I want to notice this for my colleagues, is to discharge these 2 items from committee. We will need 9 votes in order to do so. And And I know that there's not a guarantee on where people are falling on these positions, but I think that we at least have enough information now to make a decision on these positions. And I really want to appreciate Councilmember Goodman for sort of summarizing what the two positions are going to be that before us on Thursday, and also what the potential is. And of course, I want to thank the chief for coming through and giving this. If I had to say anything, just before we close, if I can, I came in. I'm someone who is, based on my time in office and experience here, I come in with a lot of skepticism around what MPD leadership should look like, what will be effective. I've gone through my ups and downs in terms of feeling like change is possible within the department, and at times feeling like change isn't possible within the department. And so while, I might ultimately be landing in a different place than Councilmember Vita on this issue, I really, really share a lot of Councilmember Vita's original concerns about what we're doing here. Are we creating a top-heavy institution, to distract from the fact that we're having trouble with recruiting rank and file? That was a thought that passed my mind, and I think through conversations with you, we had one conversation in my office, and we were able to grab coffee as a follow-up. I think that you really made a compelling case for why that isn't what the vision is moving forward, and that we're doing much more than that, and that this is the breakdown. So. I appreciate the time, and I hope to do more follow-up in the future on these other positions, and just on all things public safety. So again, thank you for the presentation, and for my colleagues, I'll be discharging those items when we get to Thursday.
Thank you. Are there any final thoughts? I want to mention that Clerk Carl just sent us individually, collectively as a body, the position reports from HR. It's at the top of your email here, and for the public, it's in our LIMS file online. Chief, I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for handling our discussion and allowing this to be under tremendous scrutiny. It's what the public deserves. And seeing no further discussion, I'll direct the clerk to file this report. Next, we will move on, and the last thing on our agenda today is to receive reports from the standing committees on matters that will be considered by the full council this Thursday. We'll start with the Business Inspections, Housing and Zoning Committee, chaired by Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. There'll be 17 items coming forward for us on Thursday. Item 1 is approving a license, as is item 2. Item 3 is moving to delete the item from the agenda because the applicant has withdrawn their application. That will probably be news to members of the committee, but a happy news for some of the members of the committee, as we had voted to deny it. And so now it's being withdrawn from request. Item number 4 is granting an appeal. This is a very interesting issue. This is one of the challenges that happens when we don't have our comp plan and our zoning aligned. This is something that would have been allowed for Spy House Coffee under a completed 2040 plan implementation that has not been allowed as a result of it. And so we granted the appeal. I want to thank Councilmember Payne for coming to committee. Item number 5 are the liquor license approvals. 6 are the renewals. 7 are amending our license fee schedule regarding tow truck service fees. Item number 8 are board appointments to the Workforce Advisory Board. 9 are grant applications for the state of Minnesota for youth employment and trading services. Item 10 are our Brownfield grant awards. So you can look and see if projects in your ward received awards. Item number 11 is the same thing from the Metropolitan Council, and 12 is awards for ESG and rapid rehousing money. Item number 13 is a rezoning, as is item number 14. Item 15 is an alley vacation, as is item number 16. And item number 17 is a really incredible Great Streets Gap loan for Dreamland on 38th. And if there are any questions on the agenda, I'm happy to answer them now.
Thank you. Next, we have the IGR Committee Agenda Report that will be read by Councilmember Rainville.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have 3 items to report on. One is the passage of a resolution of support for the University of Minnesota Graduate Labor Union. Item 2 is amending the 2023 legislative agenda and policy position. There were 4 amendments that we passed earlier today, including amending to reflect the changes related to classification of public safety complaint data, reflect changes related to tuition-free higher education programs, amending to support legislation that would clarify acceptable conduct at open meetings, and amending to support legislation that would provide for the safety of public officials. Also, we had a third item, which is amending the federal legislative agenda. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Next, we have Public Health and Safety Committee presented by Councilmember Vita.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. The Public Health and Safety Committee is bringing forward 10 items. Item 1 is authorizing the submittal of a grant application to the Centers for Disease and Control for the new Racial and Ethnic Approaches to Community Health Grant. Item 2 is accepting a donation from the Federal Bureau of Investigations for travel expenses for Police Sergeant Thomas, subject to attend a recertification training course. Item 3 is accepting a donation from the Association of Threat Assessment Professions for travel expenses for Police Sergeant Dean Kreigel to attend their 2023 Winter Conference. Item 4 is accepting a donation from the East Lake Isles residents for purchase of fixed camera for public safety purposes. Item 5 is accepting a grant from the Minnesota Homeland Security and Emergency Management for police bomb disposal equipment and training. Item 6 is authorizing a revenue contract with SMG to provide law enforcement equipment at US Bank Stadium. Item 7 is authorizing a revenue contract with SMG for bomb detection services at US Bank Stadium. Item 8 is authorizing a revenue contract with SMG for SWAT security services at US Bank Stadium. Item 9 is approving appointments to the Minneapolis Advisory Committee on Aging. And item 10 is adopting the Minneapolis Food Vision. I'll stand for questions on these items.
Thank you, Chair Vita. Last but not least, we have Public Works and Infrastructure Committee. That'll be read by Councilmember Koski.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. The Public Works and Infrastructure Committee is bringing forward 8 items for approval. Number 1 is project approval for the 46th Avenue South Street resurfacing project. Number 2 is project approval for the Minnehaha Residential Street resurfacing project. Number 3 is project approval for the Park Avenue South Street resurfacing project. Number 4, project approval for the Hennepin Avenue South Streetscape project. Number 5, designing the Mill District Street resurfacing project. Number 6, updating the parking and mobility services fee and rate schedule. Number 7, approving the construction of public infrastructure improvements and district stormwater systems for Upper Harbor Terminal project. And number 8 is adopting the racial equity framework for transportation. I will stand for any questions.
Thank you. And last but not least is actually the Policy and Government Oversight Committee chaired by Councilmember Ellison. My apologies to take you out of order there.
No worries, no worries. It just confirms to me that everyone is jealous that we have the best acronym. So the Policy and Government Oversight Committee is bringing forward 19 items for approval. 1 is passage of resolution for a gift acceptance for the National Association of County and City Health Officials of travel and lodging expenses. 2 is a passage of a resolution for a gift acceptance for Amplio Economic Development Corporation for travel and lodging expenses. 3 is passage of a resolution for a gift acceptance from Ranked Choice Voting Resource Center for travel, lodging, and meals. 4 is a passage of a resolution establishing the 2023 Local Board of Appeal and Equalization. 5 is amending the 2023 General Appropriation Resolution, decreasing the racial equity, inclusion, and belonging appropriation, increasing the community planning and economic development appropriation. 6 is accepting a bid for Ramp A escalator removal. 7 is accepting a bid for refuse packer bodies and tipper assemblies. 8 is accepting a bid for the Upper Harbor Terminal, Lower Dowling Avenue, 33rd Avenue, and West River Road construction project. 9 is authorizing contract with Short Elliott Hendrickson, Inc. for engineering and design services for Nicola Avenue street construction and bridge reconstruction. 10 is authorizing a contract with Restorative Justice Community Action for restorative justice services. 11 is authorizing contract amendment with Tetra Tech Inc. for National Incident Management System reset exercises. 12 is authorizing a contract amendment with Urban Design Perspectives for continuing work on the Climate Equity Plan. And 13 is authorizing a contract amendment with Stentech Inc. for engineering and design services for the Upper Harbor Terminal project. 4 is authorizing a contract amendment with Deloitte Consulting LLP for additional compensation consulting services. 15 is authorizing a contract amendment with organizations providing services under the Minneapolis Strategic Outreach Initiative, with item 1 being slated to be deleted. And 16 is authorizing a contract amendment with various artists for the John Biggers Seed Public Art Project. I'll have to be abstaining from that item because I'm one of the artists listed in that item. And 17 is authorizing contract with National Forum for Black Public Administrators for a recruitment table. And as I said before, the 2 items that we had a presentation on, I will also be voting to discharge them from committee so that we can take those up as well. And I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Ellison. With that, we've concluded all business to come before us today. So hearing no objection, I will declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
So please, park your cars on the odd side of the street and leave rooms for emergency vehicles to respond to the emergencies in your community. Thank you.